and just didn't have anything left in the tank to do any videos. I'm going to try to make up for that today, though. But here we go. Eastern philosophers versus Western philosophers. This one is probably going to be a little difficult to analyze at the end just because it's a group versus a group, so there's probably going to be a whole lot going on. But let's see what it has for us.
Battles of history, lawsuit, sunsuit, and confusion, versus Nietzsche, Socrates, and Voltaire. I'm coming off the Acropolis to stop some pandemonium. Don't bring limp rap to a pimp slap symposium. The mad gadfly, philosophy was my invention. Rolling with the flyer stylist. And me, their French we got the wisdom. And the wit that even I couldn't question. Dropping Western medicine on these East infections. You've never been a type of mental brethren. We're better,
This type of arrogance is sure to be expected from men who speak of wisdom with no clue of what respect is.
You Westerners are sloppy, needing discipline and life. You lack control of yourselves. End of the mic.
Well, we use precise strikes to disrupt your concentration. And you and ass whipping our descendants will honor for generations. We build a nation
Patient.
and the present for a living.
But you'll never hold a candle
To the wisdom
we've
written.
Oh, I'll give you something you can bow and kowtow to. When I squat down and squeeze out a dower poo and now still you need to take control of the life you're giving. Call me Uber, cause I'm so ridiculous. So confronting conformists like you, it's my job. Got a sharp wit that can spit, it'll skew you like a Confucius kebab. Oh. You felt the mission, I'm beating your submissive ass into submission. Dishing out more dishes and letters and pamphlets and plays them in public. Now that we've covered the two yin and yang, I can move on to Jackie Chan. Who I'll be taking a pot rule with my method. Man, criminal general isn't so tough on the mic. Your men must be like you would have it. Pitiful lyrically, lucky for history, you didn't offer the art of writing.
Bitch, I wrote the art of war, so you better get your guns out. These white boys getting burned, cause guess what? Now the sun's out. Asians spitting sick, but no, this isn't ours. Lao Tzu kick the beat, now Confucius drop some bars. Let me be candid with you, Voltaire. French trick with the egg noodle hair. Your ego's just so distracting. Free speech doesn't mean just keep yapping. You killed God, so I gotta ask. Did he die your shame when he made your mustache? You try to plant a new German psyche, but you just who hate me. No, sir, right? And it all starts with you. You're the father, Socrates. Honestly, I think you owe both of your students here an apology.
I wouldn't exactly call myself a student of this creed. Don't make Nietzsche come over and put a knee up in your cheek. I'm N-I-E-T-C-S-C-H-E, and I'll admit a motherfucker like my name in a spelling bee. I'm toxic like a hemlock stem. Hang a sandal on the door, cause you can suck dick. Socrates, you're making things a little tense. Come, let's bind these Chinese heinies with some shiny, bright enlightenment. I'll not be taught camaraderie from a fraud who rigged the lottery. You make a mockery of ethics, so keep your fat nose in your coffee. Let me be frank, don't start beef with beef frank. Who hangs with beef franks? Giving ladies beef frank.
I have turned them on themselves. Their chaos is our opportunity.
You must remember, a bowl is most useful when it is empty.
Lao Tzu, I don't mean no disrespect, but you need to fill your bowl with some shit that makes some sense.
Oh, you don't wanna stand in the path of Lao Tzu today. I'll make you move, bitch. Get out the way.
Yeah, where in the tradition of rap battles is it written that two dudes on the same team just squabble like some clucking chicken? Man, Confucius, you always trying to put something in its place. Why don't you tell your eyebrows they need to feel better on your face? Okay, I see. You wanna make it like that? I smack that warmongering head out of you to go by tag. So here's the real golden rule. I'm way above you weak rookies. Confucius say you can all hold these pussy committees.
What is winning?
Oh. Very good question there at the end. What is winning? That battle went all manner of sideways there at the end. Okay, so I guess I'm going to have to judge this battle in two parts. The United Easterns versus the United Westerns, and then that whole just mosh pit that happened there at the end. Well, it really wasn't even the end. It was more like the second half, which is them bickering amongst themselves. Which that shit Sun Tzu said. Oh my god, that was fucking hilarious, dude. This is going to be a very difficult battle to judge right here. Okay, for the first half, with the United Westerns versus the United Easterns, yeah, it's kind of a tough call because the Westerns did come off very strong. in their first. They didn't really have any biting attacks, but they did a pretty good job of talking themselves up. Socrates and Nietzsche definitely, for the United Westerns, were the strongest. Voltaire, I wasn't really feeling much from Voltaire, at least for, the first set from the Westerners. Now, while the Western philosophers were definitely strong in their first set, like I said, they were mostly talking themselves up. Now, the Eastern philosophers were much more aggressive and much more on the attack in their first set against the Westerners than the Westerners were. Like I said, the Westerners spent most of their time talking themselves up, whereas the Easterners were directly responding to them and going on the offensive. For the first two sets against each other, I'm going to have to go with the Eastern philosophers, simply because they were much better on the offensive. Not saying the Western didn't have a good first set, but like I said, they didn't have any good bites. They were mostly just talking about themselves. Now, for the second sets, again with Voltaire, just not feeling much from him. Socrates did good. I think Socrates definitely carried the most weight of his whole side of the rap battle. Nietzsche did all right, but Nietzsche sounded good in the way he said things, but his lines weren't as strong as Socrates. Now, the second set coming from the Eastern philosophers was probably the best out of the whole United sets, because Sun Tzu opened up with some really good jabs, Confucius carried fairly strong, and then Sun Tzu finished off with some really good hits, too. So, for both sides united against each other, I'm going to have to give it to the Eastern philosophers for the victory on that part of the battle. Now, for the second half of the battle, where they basically just started firing off rounds in every direction, first off, I'll judge the Westerners against each other. Again, Voltaire. Not getting much from him. Just not. So it really comes down to Nietzsche and Socrates. Nietzsche did really good. I really liked his lines, I'll end any motherfucker like my name and his spelling bee, because goddamn that name. Socrates, however, came back really strong against Nietzsche and against Voltaire. I'm happy to see him insult the shit out of Voltaire. Like I said, I'm just not getting anything from Voltaire. So I'm going to call it a toss-up between Socrates and Nietzsche for the Westerners fighting amongst themselves. Now, as for the Easterners fighting against each other, Sun Tzu, obviously. I mean, he turned to one side and he railed into Lao Tzu. And he turned right around and literally blew Confucius' eyebrows clean off. Horrible joke, I know. But yeah, so Easterners amongst themselves, I've got to give it to Sun Tzu. And looking at these characters historically, I have to admit I don't know a great deal about Voltaire or Lao Tzu. And I only know a little bit about Nietzsche and Confucius. However, I am a big fan of Sun Tzu, mainly because I read his book. Well, one of the translations of his book, epic book. In general, if you haven't read The Art of War, I would suggest reading it, because those principles don't just apply in warfare, they apply in a lot of things. Now, The Art of War is certainly not the be-all, end-all of warfare. It's more about the mindset going into war rather than what to exactly do in war. Although it certainly does have that aspect in there as well. I guess you could say out of the whole bunch of both sides, Sun Tzu is the one that I'm the most familiar with. The other ones I either only know by name or know very limited bits and pieces about them. So the final verdict for this, the first half of the video, I'm going to say the Eastern philosophers won. For the Western philosophers against each other, I'm going to say it's a close toss-up between Socrates and Nietzsche, although kind of leaning towards Socrates on that one. And then amongst the Eastern philosophers, it's all Sun Tzu. Period. Hands down. So, that being said, considering that Westerners lost the first round and had a toss-up between their two on the bickering amongst themselves phase, the Easterners clearly took the second round, and Sun Tzu clearly took the bickering amongst the Easterners' side. I'm just going to say that the Eastern philosophers overall were better in this battle. These battles, and several of them in here. So anyways, that'll be all for Western and Eastern philosophers fighting against each other. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll see you next time. Until then.